That's the one thing that I would want for this Nostr network to always have, is for the users to have the power on and the choice to make these decisions. If you bake everything into the relays and you make them smarter than what they should be, you're giving your power away.
In this episode, I had the opportunity to host Ricardo and Anton, the developers behind Nostream. You may know Ricardo by his nickname Cameri. He's very active on Nostr. We talk about the history of the project, a short purple pilling story, the basics of paid relays, the concepts of federation among relays, philosophies around what relays should serve and how they should evolve, some details around the economics of running relays, and their thinking around how to promote choice in payments on Nostream. This was a fun one for me since there's so much to learn in the Nostr ecosystem, and these guys are building one of the OG projects in the space. I hope you enjoy listening to our conversation.
Yeah, well, thank you for having us.
Yeah,
it's a pleasure. It's nice to actually get to talk to you. I saw you're very active on Nostr, so it's been cool to interact with you on there, and now in a more kind of a better setting like this.
Yeah. Likewise, and one of the questions, actually, I solicited a bunch of questions from people who are interested to hear. And one of the questions was, people are asking, how can you be so active on Nostr and still be, building this great tool and relay and operating the relay? Like, how do you get it all done?
Well, we don't actually code all day. I mean, we take breaks. Sometimes we feel bad about it. And we could go on a 2-day or 3 days straight where we're not really coding or anything. But yeah, I guess the way we do it is that when we get to coding, we really focus on what we're doing. And I do close like Damus client, which is the one that I'm using the most right now. I close that down. I put my phone down because, the moment I get a notification, I'm out of my Zen mode and I need to get back to it. So I can make the headspace as well to actually get into coding. And it usually, you get more done once you're focused than trying to work all day. That's really not going to work. I think we're going to burn out if we do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so is your, I didn't get the whole set of relationship here, but I know, Ricardo, you go by Cameri, right? That's like a pseudonym or?
It's the nickname that I've been using for years. It's so long. It actually comes from my name. So the CA is for the first 2 letters of Cabral, the ME for Mejia, and then the first 2 letters of Ricardo, RI, Cameri. That's where it comes from.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, I'm not really anonymous by any means. Like, I'm a public persona.
Yeah. And then I heard a little bit of like your background. I think I heard it on the Nostrovia podcast. You were talking about how you got into developing Nostream, I think about a year ago, was it?
Actually, it was earlier than that. Because at the beginning, I actually didn't code Nostream for it to be public. It was something that I was going to use for myself. And then I thought that, okay, I actually want this to be the easiest relay that anyone could use, right? And that's what I actually turned around, and I think that's when I started. It was not called Nostream back then. It was called Nostr TS Relay because it was heavily influenced by the existing Nostr RS relay, which is the Rust relay that most people were using at the time, and they still are. If you look at the Nostr.watch website, you'll see that it's the one of the most popular ones. And I think that may change. There's new players now in the field. There's stir fry. But going back to the beginning, I did start a bit earlier. I wasn't just coding relays. I was also coding like utilities, adding some features to branle, which was like one of the very first clients, if not the first. So it wasn't just relays at the beginning. It was more than that. Yeah.
And how did you guys get connected? Or I assume like Nostream is the two of you now, or is that?
Yeah, it's the two of us. Anton, I don't know, maybe you want to say
Anton,
a couple things on how we met each other.
Yeah. No, I was purple pilled by Ricardo at work. And I'm a recent addition to this ecosystem, but in December, Ricardo kind of pointed me to Nostr, and I was like, oh, this looks interesting. It was a to-do for me to go and check it out. And he sent me his pub key, and it was kind of sitting in my to-dos for a while. And I'm actually in between jobs now, so I had a lot of time, and I was like, what can I do that's useful right now while I'm kind of looking for the next gig? And over the holidays, it's funny because I was thinking about what's the best thing that I can work on and contribute towards, and decentralized systems came out as one of the things, and then like security and privacy. beyond that. And so Nostr kind of fell like right into my lap, and I was like, this is perfect. And I saw what Ricardo was working on when I actually started poking around. I created a key pair and started looking at what's going on, and saw that he's working on a relay. And I thought, what a great opportunity to help build something that's empowering this new decentralized system. And so he kind of took me under his wing and showed me this new, promised land, this new world. And I became pretty obsessed with Nostr very quickly. So most of my days now I'm trying to figure out, I'm either building something or trying to figure out how to improve what we have going and keep it rolling and kind of, purple pilling people.
And were you coming at this from, you mentioned kind of decentralized technologies. Have you worked on other decentralized technologies, or has this kind of been a passion that you followed, or do you come from the security privacy space, or where's sort of your
a bit of both. Yeah, like I used to be the head of security at Ledn, where Ricardo works still. Yeah. And I've been in the space for a while. I think I started like end of 2016. I worked for Vitalik's dad. He had this like company, and so that was the connection. I was aware of Bitcoin, but that pushed me into like Ethereum, and then I spent a lot of time learning how to code smart contracts, and that got me interested in security more, because I realized very quickly that security, it was already a part of what my interest set, but it made me really dive deeper on things like asymmetric cryptography and how to secure your assets. And since then, I've been a huge fan of the crypto space, and especially Bitcoin and Lightning, and now Nostr. And so I've been in the space for a while, and I've kind of been looming on the edge of like, it was contributing to open source and kind of contributing more directly to the protocols was on my list of to-dos for a while, and now I'm finally doing it, which feels pretty good. So I want to keep that rolling and figure out more ways and maybe contribute, to Lightning and Bitcoin more directly as well, because I feel like we need to decentralize everything.
Yeah, all the things. Yeah. So did you guys get into? You met at Ledn. Did you got into Bitcoin before you got into Ledn? Was Ledn kind of like a natural employment opportunity around an ecosystem you're already kind of familiar with and comfortable with?
Yeah, so for me, I learned about Bitcoin from my previous engineering manager, and then he taught me all about it. And after that, one of the things that we talked about in our one-on-ones was like, hey, if you ever go work for a Bitcoin company, take me with you. Like,
yeah.
And that's what happened. So he joined Ledn, and then he told me, hey, this company is a real deal. So after a few months, because I knew he was like in the honeymoon phase or something. I wanted to wait, and I waited just long enough for me to feel comfortable that he was telling me the truth. I trusted him, but at the same time, I had my own trust issues, I guess. And then eventually, I did apply. I joined, and I've been there ever since. But yeah, initially, I got into Bitcoin, and I also got into crypto as well. It wasn't just Bitcoin. But then over time, like I got rug pulled. I guess some people need to go through this to actually understand the value of Bitcoin.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. I think it's a common story that you sort of need, everybody learns about Bitcoin and then learns about all these other things. And you're like, oh, well, look at all this stuff that can be done. Yeah. Shouldn't we go do all these things? And then you're like, oh, actually, some of these principles, some of these foundational things matter more.
Yeah, I'm happy to say that I sold the last Ethereum that I had. I got rid of it.
So we're here today. A lot of what I wanted to cover, and one of the reasons I wanted to reach out was to really understand more about relays, and specifically about paid relays, because I have not done enough exploration around like the relay ecosystem. Like I'm aware of Eden because it's, I think, one of the biggest, but I don't know enough about sort of how it all works and what are the trade-offs. So that's the kind of stuff that sort of brings me. And then I'm hoping that I can learn enough about a paid relay that I could make a tutorial for how people can sign up for paid relays and how they can incorporate them into their usage of Nostr.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's better if we start why we ended up with paid relays in the first place, right? So the obvious thing will be, okay, yeah, relays need to stay alive. Like You need maybe a business model, or you need a way for you to cover the costs.
Yep.
Initially, when the network is so small and there's not a lot of people, you could probably get away with running a relay on like $5 a month. Maybe you're running it on a Raspberry Pi, and there's not that many people using it. But as things have been speeding up and growing, you ask the question, how is this going to scale? Not just like in the size of the network or the users, but the relays themselves. Can they cope with the traffic?
Right.
So the first thing that actually happened was not even was not because of this. Was not because of the network effect. We for a long time the network was just bootstrapped by people, and it still is. Most of the relays are actually free today. By people that are putting in their time and their own money to run a relay and to make it available for other people to use. But long term, we all know that it's not viable. The thing that pushed me over the edge and actually implement this paid relay thing was spammers. So the moment you start seeing people coming in, out of, I don't know, maybe 10,000 people, there will be one spammer among them. And that person will try to ruin the fun for everyone else. I'm sure you're aware of the this phrase, or I can't remember the phrase right now, but the point is, if you have access to a system, to get the most of it, you will probably want to use it until you are using it at capacity. You're basically doing this, and then you're leaving nothing for everyone else.
Also, like tragedy of the commons.
Exactly, the tragedy of the commons. So this is exactly what's going to play out for Nostr if it doesn't find a way to stop not bad actors, but let's just say if you think that information needs to flow freely from anyone to anyone, then I think that's a mistake to think about it that way, because information can also be can also come with like a negative impact on the other end. If you're free to send me mail and like send I don't know, fill my mailbox, I won't be able to see the mail that I actually care about.
Right.
So there must be a cost involved. Now the problem is, how do you ensure that anyone that can send you anyone that can send you a message has to pay this cost, keep it small, easy to pay, right? That's the thing. We now have the Lightning Network, and that's how we can make it work. Before, you had to go through, I don't know, your payment process like Stripe or something like, and that will be the friction will be too high probably, and it also doesn't speak to the Bitcoiners as well, because why would I go to the fiat world when we are already in a world where it's decentralized? Like, we can't depend on anything that is centralized for this to even grow. And that's where, we basically, Nostr was good on its own, and it's completely independent from Bitcoin and the Lightning Network. But the moment you add the two, you get this new feature, this new, I like to call it like an energy shield, which sounds pretty cool, which is what paid relays are surrounded with. Like, they have this thing around them that doesn't let, and of course, if you're a spammer, you can pay the relay, you can get in and start posting. But the moment you're caught, and you will be caught, that's it. You lost your admission fee, and maybe in the next time, you have to pay more. So
is there a mechanism you have in mind then for how somebody's reputation could get marked or adjudicated by people and then cut out, or is that sort of up to the relay operator to decide, or to sort of have a rubric for how that would work?
Yeah, so I think it's really early to tell like what algorithm we'll use for catching spam. Right now, it's pretty manual. I know I've been asked questions on what exactly is spam. Everyone thinks there's like everyone has their own definition of what spam is. I think if you're I think some spam is pretty obvious. Like, if you're sending the same link over and over and over, or you're replying to every single post that any user sends, that's clearly spam, right? And that's the one that we've been targeting. The way that I've seen it working is like people just report it. They just say, "Oh, this user is spamming on your paid relay," and it's really easy to act on it. We just go right now. It's pretty manual. We go on the database. Usually, if it's paid, we just it doesn't matter. Like, you violated the terms of service, which you had to agree on once you paid for the relay. So we just go in and delete all the messages that you sent, and we also disable your admission. So you will have to go through the whole process again.
That whole npub just gets stopped from ever submitting again.
Forever, that it's gone. Yeah.
And how do you think about the mechanics of how a relay should kind of graduate from this kind of early day to maybe some more advanced versions? Because I think today you mentioned it's a lot of hobbyists, right? And maybe a Raspberry Pi and $5 is enough. But if this thing gets bigger, there's going to be real costs probably already occurring, and there's probably some real infrastructure needed to make that work. So do these over time become more like centralization points and risk points in that sense, or do you think there are ways to help keep it decentralized while helping kind of people pay for the costs they're going to incur?
Yeah, so I think there are ways to keep the network decentralized and still give the choice to users to decide where they're going to place their messages and still get heard. Be heard. I would say one of the things that I thought about is having this concept of federations, and not the same federation as like Mastodon federation, where you have to agree with this other server to actually connect with them, and then if they post something that you don't like, you disconnect. In a way, every relay operator has their own choice, right? But if you join a federation, the federation will probably have their own terms. And then if you join the federation, you're accepting those terms, and there's like no question about it, what's allowed and what's not allowed. And the way that it will work is obviously it will be load balanced across all the nodes in the federation. And if there's any payment, which there should be, then it will be distributed kind of like
mining pool,
right?
Yeah, okay.
So based on how much traffic you are serving, then that's how much money is gonna get to you. And I think that will be a model that will work and scale. The other model that I've been thinking about is, and we've seen this in ISPs already. ISPs have tiers, and most users they only know tier 1 ISPs. They are like your Comcast or your Bell. You connect to those, but those ISPs they do not connect necessarily directly with each other. They go through higher tier ISPs, and I think that could be another way to keep the network still decentralized, and at the same time, allow it to scale, because that's the main issue, right? Allowing it to scale and at the same time stay decentralized.
Right. And what does it look like today? I guess we're beyond maybe the $5 Raspberry Pi, but is it gotten to be overwhelming from the kind of scale you're seeing today? 'Cause, I mean, I look at all these charts and all the, everything's just like a vertical wall. And I wonder, like, is it already becoming the kind of thing where a hobbyist will have a hard time participating, or is it still accessible to hobbyists to participate? And how would that play out in the Federation world?
Well, it depends, right? Some relays are private, and I guess as long as you keep it to yourself and friends and family, that relay will work for you. Raspberry Pi will do more than fine with that kind of traffic. But the moment you want to go global and you want to offer this relay publicly, I think you have to start thinking about scaling up and scaling horizontally as well. So that's one of the main issues, I would say, for relay operators, is to understand, there are limits to how much you can scale up in a single server. And the trick will be to balance the scaling up and also scaling horizontally, so that, it stays cost effective to actually, run a relay network.
And the relay network would have kind of a bunch of the federated, the term you're using is federation of relays. So do you imagine there's a new type of protocol or agreement phase that happens among them, or is it loose, or is it more structured, do you think?
I think it will be more structured than loose. I do hope that it's something that you can join and leave at any point. You're not the same mantra about like just changing from client to client. You should be able to change from federation to federation at Obviously, you're taking the user's data with you, so
Right.
it's not that you can do it and there's no damage involved. You're obviously disconnecting your users. But you could also be part of two federations. As long as the terms allow it, you should be able to join more than two federations. In this model, obviously there is a lot of challenges. I don't think it has been well thought out. I think there's a lot that needs to be discussed. But I do see there will probably be this flexibility built in so that it can grow and it's not hindered by 10 guys or maybe 3 guys that are calling the shots on what's going to happen.
Right.
Maybe we come up with a manifesto. This is what the federation, these are the values of the federation. These are the terms. Join us now. And yeah, maybe that could kick off. I'm not Nostradamus.
Right.
Pun intended. But I will say that's something that we should try. That's a way of going forward that needs to be explored.
Right. And Anton, what's your perspective on these things Ricardo's saying? Is this something that you guys already have a pretty consistent view on, or do you have sort of other models that you like to explore or want to?
Yeah. I mean, I've been learning most of this from Ricardo. He's really, spent a lot of time doing great thinking around this, and everything he said, I think, makes a lot of sense. Something that I would add is maybe one problem that we have is, efficient syncing of different relays, and that's not a fully solved problem yet. And I think outside of figuring out how to scale horizontally, we're also working on ways to figure out efficient ways to sync up, maybe using Bloom filters. That's one thing we've been talking about, Merkle trees. So you can easily basically figure out what the set of events that you don't have is and only sync those. Because right now we have a lot of repetition and duplication. So in terms of the data that's flowing through the system, there's a lot of inefficiencies. And I think that's something that we're going to get better at, both on the relay and the client side. So I think that's a really interesting thing that we need to work on and figure out. But yeah, I think having this flexibility of being able to join different federations or be a member of multiple ones to kind of combine our powers to scale, I think that's a really important thing we need to figure out, because even now, and we don't have that many users, there's already issues with keeping up with the growth.
Right.
So tonight we're going to add more relays to our setup, just to deal with the influx of people. And we're working on things like co-locations, putting it in different regions of the world just to improve response time. So we're learning as we go, but so far it's going pretty well. So I think it's only going to get better.
Right. And the federation idea, when you talk about how you may do some syncing or Bloom filters across the federation, is there a set of 2 or 3 other big relay operators that you're having these discussions with, or are these things that maybe you're discussing within a NIP process, or do you think it's kind of protocol layer stuff, or stuff that should be sort of experimented with in these higher level federation ideas kind of loosely, and then you figure out if it belongs protocol later?
So the conversation has been happening in the Nostr in Spanish channel in Telegram. I haven't had the conversation with other big relays. However, I think it's just too early, right? We have the idea. We think how it's going to. Yeah, we think we have the idea on how it's going to work, but not necessarily have started implementing it. I think there are things that are more high priority right now than coming up with federations. I think there's going to be a lot of work involved to make that even happen, just to make it automated. I obviously don't want to spend any time whatsoever in maintaining, a federation. I want it to be self-serve, and the same thing that I want for every single relay that it's running out there. It should be self-maintained, and the relay operator should, because it takes time. I mean, the mistake will be to think that the only thing that relay operators do is just put up a relay and start charging people. I mean, if you think that's what we're doing, you'll be sorely mistaken.
Right.
Yeah, so we're always innovating, we're always changing things, tweaking parameters. Just recently, we had to tweak some parameters on the Eden relays just to make them cope with the new traffic that's coming in. So we realized that we were rate limiting even by the day. But we were not seeing any rate limits by the day, so we got rid of those. And now, we have less demand memory wise, like we're using less memory, and those are the kind of things that have kept us busy more than anything. Just managing, it's taking a little bit of time away from building, but we also need to learn how to manage this, so it works in the end. Because what we learned today, is things that will probably force us to automate, so that in the future we don't have to keep on doing it.
Yeah, if you sort of first take the pain of doing it by hand, and then you figure out, oh, we can just automate this piece of it, then you don't prematurely optimize, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
So how does it work when you're sort of both building this relay, and then it sounds like the operation of a relay is much more involved than maybe somebody who's not operating relays might think. So are you like 90% of your time is busy with the operation of it, and only maybe 10% towards kind of new features and other ecosystem stuff?
Well, of the time we dedicate to Nostr, I would say maybe 40% is spent on tweaking relays and restarting them and making sure that they're running. Like, I'm always looking at the screen and making sure that they're running smoothly. And then the 60% is building. For sure, there's maybe not that much. Maybe let's say 30. The other 30% working on the relays, 20% supporting other people get their relays up, and because we also need to help onboard more users into this ecosystem. We can't just like run our own relay and forget about it. Because the part of the growth of Nostr is also supporting each other. So the moment I help someone else, that someone else will learn how to do it and help somebody else. I'm actually sometimes just letting support requests, not an official thing, but like when someone comes into the channel and asks for help, I just don't jump right away and help them. I let other people, provide the help, because this also needs to be an effort that is like, not decentralized, but we need more people to actually help out.
Yeah, it's great to be able to let people stand up, sort of raise their hand and become leaders in different ways. Do you think that the with Nostream, that's the biggest one that I'm aware of, but is there a whole ecosystem of other relay developers that maybe have different opinions about directions, or are there sort of any hot debate issues right now that are happening among people, other people developing relay software?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that they're happening right now, but they've happened over time. One of the most contentious, I would say, would be adding search capability to relays, which I think in the protocol doesn't really support it. So whatever is being done today is either a brand new NIP that just came out, or doesn't follow spec, and eventually a NIP will come out so that other relays can implement it. So I will say that will be the number one thing, and that's mostly because relays don't really look into the content of nodes that people are posting. We look at the tags, we look at the pub keys and all other fields that come with every single node, but not doing any deep inspection on content. And I'm hoping that we can stay away from looking at content as much as possible, because the moment we start caring too much about it, that's the moment where relays may start turning their backs on the principles of the network, which is like censorship resistance. So if you start caring about the content that people are putting out, then things may get a little bit out of hand.
Right. So you want to be more like an internet router, but you don't want to really care so much about the content. So do you think that caring about the content should be done at some middleware layer, or do you think it should be mostly on clients? Or how, I think about things like even people discovery feels like it's a challenging thing to do today. And I understand, it has centralization aspects that most people want to avoid, but that's the kind of thing, like if you know what content I'm zapping or reacting to, you could suggest people that I might want to follow, which might help me have a better experience. And so I think we all know the path of why that helps. And there's obviously downsides to it, which we're fully aware of from like existing centralized systems. So like, do these things eventually emerge, but they're not relays, instead they live somewhere else? Or how do you think about that future?
Yeah, I actually prefer that more than building everything on top of relays. So one of the things that people keep asking, hey, can I upload my images to the Nostr relay? And I think by not baking every single requirement that people have or use case, we're allowing other players to also come into the field and offer their services. Take a look at Nostr.build, for example. That's a service that provides it lets you upload images, and then you can just like share the link on Nostr, and most clients will render that image for you. So what that tells is that relays don't really need to store that information. We're happy to store the text that you're sending, but then the business model for what can we call them? Upload media providers? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe like a media server, almost.
Media server,
function,
right?
Yeah.
And you could even use S3. Like you can pick whichever provider you want to use for your file needs for your media, and then use it with Nostr. And then what that gives you is choice. And that's the one thing that, as you were, speaking about this, that's the one thing that I will want for this Nostr network to always have, is for the users to have the power on and the choice to make these decisions. If you bake everything into the relays and you make them smarter than what they should be, then you're giving your power away. That's basically what you're doing.
Right.
Obviously, if you still have the ability to send the same information to every single relay, we're still okay. But if you have this one relay that is the only one that indexes your stuff, and you must use that relay because otherwise you don't see a part of the network, it's dark for you, then that's where I think we'll have a problem. That's where the network starts becoming fraction. I mean, yeah, it's either if you don't use it, you have like, I don't know, you're limited in a way. So those things they need to be part of the protocol eventually. There must be some effort to put those things on the protocol, and then once they are there, then relays will implement them. Everyone will be able to enjoy these features, and if everyone is able to enjoy them, regardless of the relay behind the scenes, then that's where we win.
How do you think about the future, though? Because it's like if you project out a little bit, there's like big costs in serving, CPU bandwidth, and storage, and so presumably, similar to how I think in Bitcoin mining, some large players emerged that got real scale advantage to kind of cost of capital and kind of scale of deployment, and it seems like some of those same things could occur here. And I wonder, like, do you see sort of your own mandate or your own interest as you want to fight from that thing happening, or you want to help nurture that, usher it into the world in a way that's consistent with the principles that you're outlining? Or how do you sort of see that tension?
Yeah, not sure, Anton, if you want to take this one.
Yeah, it's a hard question, I think. And I would go back to what we were talking about, the federation, but beyond that, the idea of like not siloing the data, because as long as you can find a way to persist the data across different relays and not have a single point of failure and like a big, let's pretend it's like the relay corp and they're running most of the relays and that's what everyone connects to. Think like freeing the data and making sure it's open so that we don't end up with these single points of failure. Like I think that's in simple terms the answer, but like we'll see how that pans out, because as we start onboarding more people, I imagine like some players might come in and have like a really strong marketing budget, and all of a sudden this new player is like taking up all the users, but maybe not, because like at least for now, I feel like we have pretty well-informed users that are critical thinkers that care about the system being decentralized and not having the same mistakes we've done in the past be repeated. But, along those lines of single points of failure, we're also thinking about, the cloud providers we're using to power this stuff. So like right now we're using DigitalOcean, but we're going to be using other cloud platforms to eliminate that single point of failure as well, so that when AWS goes down or Hetzner goes down or whoever goes down, that doesn't really have as much of an impact on the network. So I think the decentralization and kind of focus on removing single points of failure needs to happen on all the layers, whether it's like the relay implementation or the infrastructure provider, or like the actual like more meta layer of like how relays communicate and how people connect to them. Like we have to get all those right. So it'll be a very interesting journey to like get all of that right. But it's like, again, I'm super optimistic. It's looking really great so far.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, it has these great base principles that people have like voice and exit, right? You can always switch to something else at the protocol layer. That it seems like that ideally can always be the case. And if that's the case, then sort of even if there are centralizing forces, there's still always some resilience that can, you don't get
right.
sort of
and
the
they
same
don't have the
dominate.
leverage like Twitter does or Facebook does, where it's like they're holding all the cards and like you can't do anything about it.
Yeah. So you can encourage everybody to be good actors and kind of play maybe at thinner margins of, if people are running businesses, they have to run them more efficiently and they have to sort of be kind of, more aligned with these values. So I wonder actually, do you see what you're working on as some sort of a business or more like a community service or a hack project? Or do you have sort of an opinion about, do you have sort of maybe your own ideals about where this goes?
I think it's going to be both. I think there's a community component that will always be there, and we always have to cultivate it. But there's also the business side where obviously we want to we want to be able to cover our costs, but also wouldn't it be great, if we were able to also live from this? I live, breathe, and eat Nostr. I'm not afraid to say it, but if I could just do that for a living, that'd be nice, because that would be following one of my passions for sure. I do have a job, and I like what I'm doing in my own job. Just in case someone from that
we won't tell.
But yeah, I mean, wouldn't anyone love just dedicate their time to one of their passions, right? And one of the reasons I joined Ledn was because Bitcoin became one of my passions, and that's one of the things that I can do at Ledn. So I got that covered. I will say, as I was listening to what Anton was saying, I think another point of resiliency for the network is the fact that we have many relay implementations. So if one relay implementation catches a cold and it's completely down, like someone finds a bug, and this happened recently on Nostream, but not to go too deep into it, but the fact that we have different relay softwares out in the wild, even different versions, that makes the network more resilient. An attacker will have a hard time to bring the whole network down if we don't just use the same kind of relays. So when people have been asking me, hey, now that I paid Eden, do I remove all the other relays? And I'm like, first, I'm not going to be the one telling you to do that. And secondly, you also have to think about you're losing part of your censorship resistance by just going with one relay or going only with paid relays. There's so much content on free relays that you will be missing out by doing this. So I will never advocate, for anyone to just like go on paid relays. What we should do is use the good things from a free relay and the good things from a paid relay, and try to make the best experience for the user. So, and this is what's happening real time with clients. Like Damus, for example, is letting you choose which relays you want to see the global feed from. So this is creating this is allowing users to both be on all the relays that they want to be, and at the same time make it pure signal. Like on the global feed, I'm only going to see things from people that put in the work, right? Because that's what you're doing when you're paying the admission fee on a relay. I guess we could talk about the different kind of fees that we've been thinking about as well.
Yeah, actually, I'd love to do even just like a more basic, because I think you're starting to touch on some of the questions that I have. I have specifically avoided using paid relays because I first want to learn how to do it so that when I do it, I can make a video and show other people also how to do it. So I'm a bit confused about, and you answered one of my questions on Nostr the other day, which is, when it's a paid relay, it means pay to write, but free to read. Is it always the case that it's pay to write, free to read, or are there some that are pay to write, pay to read?
Well, if it's a Nostream relay and they haven't modified the code, then it's free to read, and you do have to pay to write.
Okay.
That may not be the case in the future for some relays. Someone may turn that off, and the only way for you to actually read from it is also by paying.
So I can understand the pay to write is a good way to help the relay operator ensure that they're carrying high quality messages, right? High quality notes. But I'm not sure I understand how that is designed to impact the whole experience of maybe a reader. So if I'm using, let's say I'm using Damus and I pay 5,000 sats, and now I have an Eden write ability, right? Then I can write there, but I am still reading from maybe other free ones. So how is the signal actually generated for me as a reader? Because I assume my Firehose view of Explorer is just kind of everything. It's still kind of a mess because I have those messy unpaid relays. So what's the right way to think about the topology here? It's a total beginner question, but
yeah. So I think it starts with the user. Like you have the choice to follow who you want to follow, and that's the first part on curating your own feed. So you'll mostly spend time on your own, just reading what your follows send you, or not you directly, but what they send, what they post, and that will be the first part. And then on something like global. Two things may come into play on a global feed. Relays may employ like rate limiting so that people are not posting too fast, or they may just like capture a snapshot, which is what Damus does. Well, the moment you click on the global feed, you just get like the most recent. I don't know if it's 500 or 100. I don't know how many messages there are, but you get a snapshot at the point in time where you clicked on the global feed. So it doesn't keep showing you like new messages. It may change in the future. But right now you only see a snapshot. And then as you're scrolling, the screen is not going up and down.
Right.
But the idea is here with the global relay is that you can choose from which relays are going to be seeing information. And what people have been doing is that they're using relays that do not have spam inherently, or that they have some good ability to block spam, which to this day have been paid relays. Nostream relays also support proof of work, but nobody has been using it. And I think the issue may lie with the fact that clients don't necessarily support it yet. So the moment clients start supporting proof of work, then we may add the requirement of some proof of work. The problem with that
you're saying
is,
not SATS proof of work, but you're saying like mining, key mining proof of work.
An event, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess we could speak a bit on how the mining will work for an event as opposed to mining.
Yeah, especially the mining for an event, because I think the delegation is not yet really incorporated, if I understand right. Is that true?
So Nostream has some support for delegation. You can't do things like delete a message just yet using delegation. I got a question the other day. If you, let's see, there's two players when it comes to delegation. There's a delegatee and then there's a delegator. And the delegator is the user that basically delegates the ability to post messages to someone else, which is the delegatee, right? And the delegatee has to have paid the paid relay to be able to post. That's the way it works today. Yeah. But I don't think we added anywhere in the code that once the delegatee can pay, the messages from the delegator will also be posted.
Right.
That's something that we need to go back and check because that may be a bug on Nostream.
Right.
Again, the NIP 26 delegation happened way before paid relays, and we may have missed some use cases, but we'll get back to it and we'll fix it. But the idea is that both will need to pay. The question is, when someone is using NIP 26 delegation, what are the rate limits that come into play, right? Is it the rate limit for the delegator or is it the delegatee? How do we allow Minds relay to post thousands of messages for all their delegators, which are their users on their platform, to post without hitting a rate limit, and be able to communicate all this stuff. So those are questions that, are still up in the air. We're going to figure them out and try to solve it. But yeah, I think, we need more hands, right? Coding on Nostream and making it better.
Well, yeah. What's sort of the, if you think about Nostream, do you want to recruit people to kind of be contributors? And do you imagine that, over time you'll have just more kind of voluntary contributors, or do you think that you'll bring people into the fold and kind of be more like team members than kind of ad hoc contributors? Or because it seems like there's a lot of work in both features that you want as well as just operational infrastructure stuff. You could imagine a future is very very large and lots of responsibilities here.
So we've been letting it happen naturally, right? Like if someone is contributing with a high frequency, we may bring them as a contributor and have like a closer conversation. If it's someone that contributes a one-off and then never comes back, then obviously no. I'm not trying to make Nostream the one thing that everyone's contributing, because it also adds it takes time away as well. We have to review all those PRs, and I've been the backlog has been growing. Anyone that has contributed to Nostream in the last few days can probably attest to that, that their PRs are waiting a little bit, but they're going to be reviewed and we're going to check them out and try to merge them as soon as possible. It also requires like the contributor to be more active. So like if they just come in and put a PR and they leave, right, they may not see their code come in just because we may have some questions about their code, or we may need to, we ask them to make some changes. But the idea is to let it grow naturally. Like I don't really have like not strong about either way, like having strong contributors and then everyone else, has to wait in line. Not really.
Right.
Yeah. The way I joined Ricardo was also like very, very like just like a casual kind of informal, like I saw what he was doing and it just seemed like a really great thing to work on, right? To like be part of this new ecosystem. And I just started writing code for it without really any expectations, mainly because I wanted to learn more about it. And I was basically trading my contributions for knowledge from Ricardo. He was teaching me. And then I eventually got hooked, and now it's like, now I'm trying to like, take it easy, man. Like you're going to burn out at this rate, but
right. How do you think about, we've talked about so many different directions this can go, so many problems to solve, so many features. How do you think about sort of where you focus your own time next? And then kind of related but separate, how do you get the message out about what you would like people to contribute on, or what you hope that maybe as a service it could achieve? Sort of help get some more focus on the things that you guys you look at it every day, what the problems are, maybe more than a casual observer. Is there any way that you communicate that or kind of lay out what you want to achieve?
And so on the repository, we have lots of feature requests that are coming in from people that basically signaling what they will want to see on Nostream. So that will be, and every time someone asks me for a feature, I also tell them like, hey, put it there, because someone's gonna see it and will want to implement it. At the same time, if they don't do that, then we may forget that this request even happened. So it's a good idea to keep track of the feature requests. One thing that I will want to see more is people coming in and contributing more support for the existing NIPs that are coming in. So recently, we've been focusing on a few NIPs, but it's just Anton and I. And I think if we have more people pick a NIP that they feel passionate about and they want to implement, then they're more than welcome to implement it on Nostream and help the ecosystem also support this feature. So supporting existing NIPs that are coming into the Nostr protocol, which I don't know, I think we're around 60 NIPs so far. I lost the count. I used to be really active on every single NIP and commenting and everything, but I can't keep up anymore. I'm leveraging other people's brains to actually get that
60 NIPs. Is it
60 now? Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not sure about the exact number, but there's a lot of NIPs coming in, and that needs. So I think there's a split. There's also going to be the people that are not really coding things, but want to improve the existing protocol. So that will happen naturally, and it has to be that way. We can't all be builders, right? And in a way, you are a builder if you're contributing to the protocol. You're probably contributing to the most core and most important part of the whole ecosystem. But we also need implementations. So all these NIPs, they need someone to go in and build it. And there should always be an implementation before we merge anything into the protocol, because it proves the use case, right? One thing that we saw a lot in the Nostr Telegram group was people coming in and saying, Nostr has this problem, right? And it basically went like this: I just heard about Nostr and it won't work because it has this problem. And
I'm gonna fix Bitcoin.
I mean, you've been here 5 minutes. We've been here for months.
Right.
So yeah, the idea is, if you think there's a problem, try to solve it and come up with a solution. We all know some of the problems that Nostr already has, like the direct messages not being private enough. And the reality is, Nostr wasn't built to be private. It was built to be decentralized. And you may lose some of that privacy because you're posting to a public network. And once you post something on the internet, you don't know where it's going to end up. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that we cannot spend time on that. But what I want to say to the privacy-minded people or privacy-focused individuals is, if you're passionate about that, propose the NIPs that are necessary to make that happen. And the builders are going to build it. You know, there's a lot of passion that can be turned into, a solid, like, real code that people can benefit from.
Do you have any kind of advice when people are thinking about building clients and they want to maybe know something about how to work best with kind of the Relay ecosystem? Do you have advice for maybe a new client developer, how they might be screwing something up or likely to screw something up, where you could kind of give them a little bit of nudge in the right direction?
Yeah, for sure. The first thing is, try your client with multiple relays and different kind of software versions. So try with the stir-fry relay, try with the Rust relay, try with Nostream, obviously. I'm biased. But I think those are the main three that I've seen. So if your client works on all those three, you're pretty much covered when it comes to ensuring that your client works with all of them. And yeah, just try them out and see how they respond to your requests. Most relays should work the same way. That should be transparent. But the reality is that not for every single feature, right? So for example, one thing that Nostream does differently from other relay implementations is that the moment you subscribe to get notes from the relay, it will send you all the stored events, if there's any. But if any event comes in at the same time, at the moment that you're getting the stored event, Nostream will send it to you as well. So even if you requested 100 events, you may get 101 because an event came in at the same time that we were sending you. Sorry, I'm saying events, but to keep it simple for the listeners, if a node came in at the same time that you were getting nodes for a request that your client made, you'll get that node too. It's not going to wait until we send you all the stored nodes for you to actually see it. So that's one thing that may trip up. May make a client developer be like, "Oh, what's happening?" But yeah, it's because we saved your subscription in memory, and the moment a new event comes in, we are not buffering them. We try to send them as soon as possible, so there is no delay in the network. If we waited to send you events, then we will have to keep a buffer for every client that is connected to the relay, which at times of high congestion, that will just grow up really quickly. And so we're basically doing like a best effort there to get you the events that you need. You're obviously going to get that for the subscription that matches. So there shouldn't be any surprises there anyways. Yeah. Can't think of anything else really. I think try your client with multiple relay softwares, and then if it works, then it works.
Right. Makes sense. And then if you were just getting started, so I've actually never run a relay, but I would like to. So I wonder if you have advice to me as like a noob potential relay operator, and then maybe I want to play with it as a private relay first. Maybe I want to play with it for backing up or storage for my own nodes, or maybe some of my friends' nodes. But I don't know. Maybe I do more over time. I don't know. What kind of advice might you have to somebody like me?
Well, first, you have to gauge like how technical you are with things. If you are not super technical and you just want to like get your hands dirty a little bit, try a private relay first. That may require the least amount of knowledge when it comes to setting it up. If you want to run a public relay, then there's two ways to go about it. Like if you want to tune it so that it works with like a lot of traffic and all that stuff, you better know your way around the terminal. You better know your way like around using servers and tuning databases and all that stuff. But also you can run Nostream using Railway, which is almost like clicking a button and then Railway spins that Nostream server for you and the cache and the database. So it's a lot of things that you don't need to worry about. That's a way that we'll always maintain and we'll always make sure that you can do that. Right now we have a bug since one of the last versions is version 1.22, but we'll try to address it as soon as possible so that you can run a relay with just a couple of clicks. But regardless, right now it's not maintenance free, so some knowledge is required. You may need to know SQL or SQL, depending on how you pronounce it. To actually connect to database and look at the events, look at the paid invoices and users that are signing up to your relay. So there's some technical knowledge involved. Make sure you have that before you dive in. Otherwise, you'll be asking a lot of questions and get frustrated.
Right. Do you think the future... Oh, sorry, go ahead, Anton.
Oh, no, I was just going to add that it's on the list of things to do to add an interface where you can actually like go and tune up your relay and maybe look and find, events that need to be removed or figure out if someone paid an invoice or not. So that's something we definitely want to add so that you don't have to be writing SQL queries and kind of looking under the hood. But we only have so much time, so that's on a little bit of a back burner right now, but definitely something we recognize is like something really operators want to see, and have a dashboard where you can see what your relay is doing and be able to fine tune it and interact with it through a GUI rather than having to use a terminal.
It seems like the more that this is accessible to somebody with minimal tech skills, the more that people can click a button, spin it up, and more decentralization of more censorship resistance. Like a lot of the principles of the network are maybe even better served. But I wonder, Nostream operates as a very large relay today, so presumably will have some amount of pull from the market to continue doing that. And I wonder if the features that might be required for running more of a private, small scale, or personal relay, would they end up diverging from the needs of like a large scale type of implementation? And is it true that Nostream would be more like the large scale version?
Yeah, I think for the most part, Nostream has been targeting big servers and things that, scaled up servers, I would say. Not so much a Raspberry Pi. However, we are going to be making strides to make it. It already runs on a Raspberry Pi. You need a beefy one. You need you need at least 4 gigabytes of memory to actually run it, and you need to tune it up. But it does run on a Raspberry Pi, and we are going to make more efforts to actually. Maybe you just need to run a script that sets it up for a Raspberry Pi, and then once you set it up, you're golden, and that will make it easier for people that are not very technical to just set it up that way. But yeah, the idea is for having servers that actually scale and handle a lot of traffic, and not so much on private relays. There are pretty good relays that you can use today to do this. I think if you use Umbrel, you can run the Rust relay, which also has a super nice interface. I'm actually a little bit jealous. I want to run one of those relays just to have that interface.
Yeah, it looks nice.
Yeah, it looks gorgeous. I want to make sure that anyone, regardless of technical background, can run a relay. So eventually we'll build all these tools. We're actually making strides to make this happen. Anton has been working, and we're spilling all the beans, basically, on what's going on with Nostream.
Yeah.
But Anton is working on making the settings dynamic. So one huge pain point that we've had is having static files for settings. And then when you change it, you don't really see you don't know, you may make a mistake on the file, and then the relay doesn't spin up, or it spins up, but then you only get default settings because you couldn't read the file. Like there's a bunch of issues that you could have with using static files on a machine. So he's turning that around, and he's gonna make it so that the settings are living on the database, and that's a precursor to actually to get to where we want to get, which is like an admin panel where you can tune your relay, and not just that. We want to give observability to Nostream so that you can see how it's doing. One question that we get a lot as well is like, how do I see how many users are connected? How much traffic? How many events is it serving? Mm-hmm. And the reality right now is that we don't know because we haven't been measuring it. We've been more focusing on offering the features than offering visibility.
Okay, so I actually have a few questions from the audience, but maybe you don't have much detail on this. But there was one because it's relevant to that. But like the ratio of reads to writes, do you have any sense or visibility on that?
I don't have exact numbers, and that changes depending on the time of day. But it's usually between 95% and 90% of reads versus writes. So it's mostly just reads and almost no writes, I would say.
Right. And another one from kind of that same catalog of questions, do you purge events ever, or do you have plans to purge events?
I guess they're asking for the Eden relay in specific, or one of the relays inside within the family of relays within Nostr.land. Spammers, those get purged. Right. I don't think we have any plans on purging right now. And if we do, it may be the day when we have a freemium model. If we ever get to that, I'm not sure. That's something that we haven't really talked about. But if we do have a freemium model, then maybe we do open the relay for any user, but we're only going to store your messages for, I don't know how long we can store them for.
I think there might be like an opportunity to do long-term storage, maybe. But the other thing we're definitely going to be purging in the near future is just the deleted and expired events. Right now, we're just not re-emitting them. Those will definitely get purged at some point. So there's that.
Right. Well, I guess related to that, I think the pricing model of 5,000 sats as a one-time and then sort of maybe in perpetuity service is probably not realistic, right? It's a nice way to start, but it doesn't really accurately reflect all the costs you incur, right? So do you have sort of a hypothesis? Is it important early to figure out pricing models that would work, or are they like monthly subscriptions or sort of usage-based? Or how do you think about getting from where we are today to kind of what it should be, and is it important to do that in the near term, or can defer that for a while?
Yeah, so I've left hints on the code that we are going to be implementing paying for publishing. It's not that you will have to pay an invoice every time you publish. It's that the relay will track your balance, basically, how many posts you have left. That doesn't necessarily mean that every paid relay is going to act this way. So what we're going to give relay operators is the option to turn that on or off. And just like they can turn on admission, they can turn on subscriptions, they can turn on pay per event, which are completely different things, different ways of capturing revenue to make sure that that you can basically cover the costs and also make it profitable. So right now, those are the three things that I see. Obviously, just admission fees won't cut it. It works now because we are riding the S curve, right? Right. There's more users coming in. They're basically covering our expenses for the next few months. It's hard to, right now predict what our cost is going to be. I mean, today we're going to be spinning up 2 more relays, but maybe that doesn't even cut it. So we'll figure it out. But the point is, we'll be able to capture revenue by adding all these features, and then relay operators can tune them. And nobody knows today what the model that the people will want to follow is. Like maybe they only want to pay for the ones that only charge you for admission, and then never pay for the ones that charge you a subscription. Right. At the end of the day, I don't think any of them is like less valuable than the others. It's about finding the price that people are willing to pay, and eventually we'll get there. Right now, it's crazy. There are relays that are charging 15,000 sats Some are charging 2,000, so nobody knows, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's I don't have any accountants that I'm working with to figure these numbers out or anything like it. So time will tell what's going to be the model that works for relays at scale in a decentralized manner.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And do you think that the relays, as you've got all these different types of features and different types of models with how a relay operator may choose to operate and monetize, do you imagine that there's some sort of a standardized template for kind of, let's say, a governance principles or operation principles that a relay would communicate to sort of establish to the market of potential clients sort of how to think about their role in the ecosystem?
Yeah, so right now Nostream is publishing the fees that it charges. So there's a NIP called NIP 11 Relay Information Document. Clients can already query this information from most relays, and what it gives you back is the fee schedules that the relay has. So you can go in and see how much it charges for admission, how much it charges for publication, or if it's there as a subscription as well. So all these fees will be listed in there, along with all the options that that you could have. Because maybe you want to pay a subscription where you want to pay yearly, and then you get a super good discount, or maybe you pay by the month, or maybe you pay by the week, or maybe you pay by post, and then you don't need to pay a subscription; you pay by use. So maybe that's the way that we go forward: pay by use, right? I don't. Maybe users don't want to be paying for something that they are not using. But if I prepay this relay, then I can use it for maybe 50,000 messages, which is like a really long time of sending messages, right?
Yeah.
So that's the idea. It's to give options to relay operators so that they can choose the path that they want to take when they set up their business, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And are you pretty hands-on when, if a new relay operator comes and says, hey, I want to go do this, are you pretty hands-on kind of coaching them through that? Because you said you spend some of your time allocated toward getting new relay operators. Is it important to get relay operators kind of well equipped, or do you find some other area in the ecosystem that's sort of in more urgent need of kind of help or your attention?
I think most of the time, not most of the time, but most of the people coming in and wanting to run a relay are covered by the guides that are out there in the wild. And the guides that people like Andre from CBD have put out for Nostream. So those cover probably 90% of all the relays that are spinning off. I don't get that many questions anymore. So his guides are pretty good, I would say. But the issue is when you want to run a relay, but you want to do something different than the guide. That's when people are coming into the official Telegram channel for Nostream and asking questions like, hey, how do I do this on CentOS? Or how do I run this on Kubernetes? Or, they ask all sorts of questions. And the reality is that we may not even know. Like, we want you to tell us, like, how you managed to run it over there. And hopefully write a guide for anyone going off the beaten path, I would say.
Right. And sort of as you think about the future of this, there's, I think it's been nicely, let's say Nostr has been nicely decoupled from Bitcoin Lightning, but also there's obvious kind of, I don't know if you want to call it gravity toward these converging in a way. And I wonder, like, do you feel like there's anything we could learn about the process for how that kind of convergence may work? Like, is it important to keep the Bitcoin Lightning things separate from the protocol, or is it important to try to incorporate them, or should there be something in the definition of a relay that would be more incorporating of kind of Bitcoin or Lightning concepts? How do you sort of think about the dance there?
So we've only implemented Lightning solutions on Nostream. However, it is written in such a way that any unit of account can be used and any payment processor can be used. There may be some places in the code that need to be tweaked to add a new currency. We only thought it for BTC and Sats, which is not the unit of account, but it's mostly what people use these days. because we're dealing with like really small numbers of Bitcoin. But Nostream could work with any currency, to be honest. It's not bound to Lightning. I will say I don't really mind if the protocol includes like agnostic way of handling payments, and then everyone can use that. I think that's the way going forward. I think relays have to stay flexible to whatever currency the relay operator wants to use.
As
the
much
reality
as it's
is nobody
like a
uses.
great.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say like it's a great onboarding tool for like people to start using Bitcoin because it's only Bitcoin right now. But really, to Ricardo's point, like we want to have the flexibility so that we can scale and grow and still orange pill people along the way, right? I think really for the longevity of the ecosystem, we need to figure out how to fund it so that it can keep up with the growth. And probably like as much as I would prefer it to just remain Bitcoin only, I think like in terms of game theory, it would make sense to take other currency as well.
And when you say other currency, do you mostly mean other cryptocurrencies, or you mean
dirty fiat? Wow. Yeah, yeah, potentially even fiat. I know.
Wow. I guess you got to pay your bill somehow.
Yeah, maybe we pay.
Yeah, I think there's just like there's friction, right? To like getting somebody to figure out, public key infrastructure and like how to work that, and then also, I don't have any Bitcoin, I can't pay for anything. Figure that out as well. Right. Maybe just making that friction a little bit easier, but again, I would love it if it was just lightning powered, that lightning shield protecting Nostr and growing together with it. That would be amazing.
Well, what is the reason? I mean, so much of the Bitcoin ethos does seem to be overlapping with Nostr, but it sounds like you're saying you could see that Nostr should be kind of bigger or more agnostic long term, maybe even short term, so that we get to long term. Are they really different, like very different in your mind, or you just want to let everybody in and then people can figure out what they prefer after everybody's you don't want to turn people off from the protocol or the services?
Yeah, I think people should have choice. And if you want to use your money to bet on a horse, I don't want to prevent you from doing that. As long as people have freedom, I'm happy with that. I know I know, what the currency of the world is and what it will be. And so I'm okay with that. I think people eventually will figure it out. I just want people to have choice, and at the end of the day, if you care about freedom, you want to also allow this for other people. You don't want to control them and say, "Oh no, you must use Bitcoin." People should use Bitcoin because they believe in it and they understand it, not because somebody told them to. So they have to do their own work and actually figure that out. And if it takes them a year, if it takes them, their whole lifetime, that's fine.
Very reasonable perspective. I like that, actually. I wish there were more people who would just recognize really it's about freedom, and like people can, discover their freedom in different ways and discover when they're actually captured by something versus when they're actually experiencing, the freedom that you might, if you've done the work, you might come to that conclusion. But the fact that you're an advocate of the freedom despite people not always agreeing with your version of freedom is actually almost like a higher principle than just you have to use mine, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think if you care about freedom, then you want people to have choice. If you constrain their choice, you're not giving them freedom. It just doesn't, you can't say one thing and do the other, right?
I wonder, is there anything else kind of in closing that we haven't covered that you think is an important topic that you're playing with in your mind, or something that is, you've been tumbling around and you sort of would like to solicit people's input or feedback on?
Not sure. I will ask people to check out our relay and maybe join. It's not really that expensive, and you're also not only you're paying for the relay you're going to be using, so it's value for value. You're getting value out of the relay. We are getting value out of that relationship as well. But also you're funding the development of Nostream. So we are using these funds to also help us develop more features and use them as kind of like bounties, right? Yep. So it's just giving us the right incentives to actually continue this, and I think we'll all benefit more at the end. So think about those 5,000 satoshis that we're charging on Eden, for example, or 10,000 on Pura Vida. Think about them as your way of saying, I want more of this, right? Because that's what we're doing. We're seeing your signal and we're playing with it and continuing it.
And all the sats go back into, we reinvested into the infrastructure. Like, if we got a bunch of donations now, we'd probably just spin up more relays right away. So
wonderful.
Yeah. That's what I want to see. A circular economy, Bitcoin only, it stays in it. I would love it if we find a provider that we can just use Bitcoin. I've seen people using Hertz. I can't pronounce it, but I think they take Bitcoin. I'm not 100% sure. I just haven't heard good experiences from relay operators running their relays over there, just because they keep getting killed by the kernel. I don't know exactly, but so far DigitalOcean has been good to us, and we may continue using that, or we may change. But yeah, just wanna leave people with something, right? If you believe in something, you don't necessarily need to be a builder to continue making it grow. You can talk to friends, you can talk to family, you can show them how it is, you can set them up with a Lightning wallet. You can take the steps to get more people involved and more people in the space, and that will help everyone. You don't need to be a coder to actually take part of the fun. You can take pride in that you help the network grow, and you'll benefit from it directly, obviously.
Do it for the fun and for the learning, right?
Well, thanks so much for this, and let's do another one soon. And as we keep learning, getting the relay ecosystem out, let's keep sharing the lessons and the learnings and all the questions, because I think there's a lot fast-moving space, and you guys are right at the center of it.
Yeah, Nostr is for everyone.